Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the special audiobook story, The Second Wedding Ring by Amjad, told in very simple and clear English so that anyone can enjoy it and understand it, even if you are still learning English. If you can follow this story till the end, that means your English is already 50% good, maybe even more. Yes. This story is perfect for people who want to improve their English while enjoying a mystery full of twists, secrets, and emotions. So, don't worry if you don't understand every word. Just listen carefully, enjoy the story, and feel the language. The more you listen, the better your English will become. Now, let's begin the story. Her name was Emily. She had been married to David for 5 years. Their life was simple, quiet, nothing strange. David was a calm man, not too romantic, not too distant, just normal. One day, Emily needed her birth certificate. David told her to check his safe deposit box. That's where he kept all the important documents. Emily found the key. She went to the bank. She opened the box. Yes, the certificate was there. But there was something else inside. A small box. Red. Velvet. She opened it. It was a wedding ring. But it was not her ring. This one looked different. She picked it up and looked inside. There was a name engraved. To my love, Sarah. Sarah? Emily had never heard David say that name before. Her hands started to shake. Was he cheating? Was he married before? Why would he hide this? Emily didn't say anything to David. No fight. No questions. Just silence. But deep down, she needed answers. So she quietly hired a private investigator. His name was Jake Miller. Sharp mind. Serious face. He looked at the ring and said, "I'll find out who Sarah is." Emily waited. And waited. 2 weeks later, Jake came back with a truth she never expected. Jake, the private investigator, had found something big. He sat in front of Emily. His face was serious. He looked straight into her eyes and said, "Sarah was not just anyone. She was your twin sister." Emily froze. She said, "What are you talking about? I don't have a sister." Jake nodded. "That's what you were told. But it's not true. You were born with a twin. Her name was Sarah. You were both born in the same hospital on the same day. But something happened. Your parents separated you both when you were just babies." Emily was shocked. But why would they do that? Why would they keep this a secret from me? Jake said, "I don't know yet. But listen to this. David was married to Sarah first." Emily's mind went blank. "David, my husband, was married to my sister before me? But how is that possible? She's never been in his life." Jake took out some papers. He said, "They got married 7 years ago. There are photos, records, and witnesses. But here's the strange part. Sarah died the same night they got married. Emily couldn't speak. Her head was spinning. She asked, "How did she die?" Jake said, "According to the report, she died in a fire. A fire that happened in your parents' house. The same house where you grew up," Emily whispered. "But I was there. When I was a child. I don't remember any fire. I don't remember anything like that." Jake nodded again. "Exactly. That's why I believe something is not right. The death certificate looks real. But it was made quickly with no full investigation. And the strangest thing? There was no funeral. No one remembers it. No news report. Nothing." Emily sat in silence. Then she asked, "So David married my sister. She died. Then he met me. And married me too." Jake said, "That's what it looks like. But I think he knew who you were all along. He knew you were Sarah's twin. Maybe he married you on purpose. Maybe he was trying to hide something." Emily said, "But why would David never tell me? Why would my parents hide the truth from me? Why would they say Sarah never existed?" Jake looked at her and said slowly, "Because I don't think Sarah really died that night. I think your parents faked her death." Emily's eyes were wide open now. "Why? Why would they fake it?" Jake replied, "That I haven't found yet. But I promise, Emily, I will." Emily was lost in thought. Her husband had a secret past. She had a twin she never knew. And now, a new question was born inside her heart. What if the past was never gone? What if the past was living right there, inside her home, waiting to be found again? Emily could not sleep that night. She kept thinking about everything Jake had told her. Her mind was full of questions. She sat in her bedroom, holding the second wedding ring in her hand. She kept looking at the name inside the ring. "To my love, Sarah," she whispered to herself. Was she really my sister? Did David really marry her first? And why didn't I ever know she existed? The next morning, Emily called Jake again. She said, "I need to know the full truth. I want to find out everything. About Sarah. About David. About my parents. I need to know who I am." Jake agreed. He said, "Let's go to your parents' house. We need to ask them questions. We need to hear their side of the story." Emily was nervous. Her parents, Linda and Robert, had always been kind and loving. They had never made her feel like anything was missing in her life. They had never spoken about a sister or about a fire or about David's past. When they reached the house, Emily sat down with them and asked directly, "Did I have a twin sister named Sarah?" Her mother looked shocked. Her father turned his face away. They did not answer at first. Emily repeated, "Please tell me the truth. I know everything is not what it seems. I found a ring. I hired a private investigator. I know about Sarah. And I know she married David before me." Her mother began to cry. Her father held her hand tightly. Then finally her father spoke. Yes, Emily. You had a twin. Her name was Sarah. You were both beautiful babies. But Sarah, she was different. She was stronger, louder, more emotional. You were quiet, soft, and calm. When you were 3 years old, something happened. Sarah went missing for a few hours. When we found her, she was hiding in the backyard, crying. After that, she became angry. She would break things, scream, and fight. Emily listened quietly as her father continued. She grew up difficult. She didn't listen to us. At 18, she ran away from home. She said she was in love with someone and would marry him no matter what we said. That man was David. Emily said, "So you knew David before I married him?" Her father lowered his head and said, "Yes, we knew him. We hated him. We didn't want Sarah to marry him." But she didn't listen. Emily asked, "What happened on their wedding night? Did she really die in a fire?" Her mother finally spoke now, her voice shaking. "No, there was no fire. We told everyone there was a fire. We told the world she died. But it was not true." Emily stared at her. "Why? Why would you do that?" Her mother took a deep breath and said, "Because we found out the truth. Sarah didn't just marry David. She was having an affair with someone else. And that person was me. I'm ashamed to say it. But yes, Sarah and I, your mother, were both in love with the same man, David." Emily could not believe what she was hearing. She stood up, shaking. "You and Sarah both loved David?" Her mother nodded slowly. "I never meant for it to happen," she said. "But he was charming, careful with words, and he made me feel alive again. It was wrong. So wrong. But Sarah found out. She went mad. She attacked me. She attacked your father. That night we made a decision. A terrible decision. We told people she died. We changed her identity. We sent her away." Emily felt like the room was spinning. Her hands were cold. Jake stood next to her and asked, "Where is Sarah now?" Her father answered, "We don't know. After that night, she left. We paid someone to give her a new name, a new life, far away. We haven't seen her since." Emily looked at both her parents. "And then, years later, David met me. And you didn't warn me?" Her mother said, "We didn't know at first. When you introduced him to us, we were shocked. But you looked so happy, and we thought maybe Sarah was gone forever. Maybe this was a second chance." Emily felt betrayed. Her own husband, her own parents, her missing sister, a fake death, a hidden affair. Everything she believed about her life was broken, and still, one big question remained. If Sarah was alive, where was she now? Emily left her parents' house feeling like a stranger in her own life. The sky was gray, The wind was cold, and her heart was heavy. She didn't speak a word on the drive back. Jake, sitting beside her, also stayed quiet, giving her space. But his mind was working fast. After a while, Emily finally broke the silence. "She's out there somewhere," she said softly. "My sister, Sarah. I need to find her." Jake nodded. "We will. But she's been gone for many years. She has a new identity. No one knows her by her real name anymore. Finding her won't be easy." Emily looked at him. "But it's not impossible." The next few days they started digging. Jake searched old records, hospital files, and name change documents from that year. He talked to people who might have helped Sarah disappear. Some refused to talk. Others said they didn't remember. But one man, a retired lawyer, gave them a clue. The man said, "Yes, I helped change the identity of a young woman years ago. She was about 19 or 20. Her parents paid in cash. They said it was for her protection. I remember her face. Sharp eyes. Long black hair. She didn't speak much, but she looked angry." Emily showed him a photo of her from when she was 18. The man stared at the photo. "She looked just like this, but a little different. Maybe a little colder." Jake asked, "Do you remember what name you gave her?" The man thought for a moment, then said, "It was something simple. I think it was Anna Lewis." Jake wrote it down. Emily's hands shook. That name meant nothing to her. But it could be her sister's new life. Jake started searching for people named Anna Lewis, who would now be around 32 or 33. Most of the leads were dead ends. But then they found one woman in a small town about 4 hours away. She had moved there 10 years ago. She had no known family, no social media, and worked at a bookstore. Emily decided to go there. She had to see this woman for herself. The town was quiet, almost like it had stopped in time. Emily and Jake went to the bookstore. A small bell rang as they opened the door. A woman stood behind the counter, arranging books. When she looked up, Emily stopped breathing. It was like looking into a mirror. The woman froze too. Her face went pale. Emily walked slowly towards her. "Sarah?" she whispered. The woman didn't answer. Emily tried again. "Is your name Sarah? Are you my sister?" The woman took a step back. Her voice was cold and low. "You must be mistaken. My name is Anna." Emily felt tears rising. "No, you are her. I know it. I can feel it. You're my sister. You married David. You disappeared. I need to understand. I need to know why." Anna, or Sarah, looked at her with eyes full of pain. She said nothing for a long time. Then finally, she spoke. "I was never supposed to see you again," she said. "They promised me I would never have to. They gave me a new life, a quiet life. And now you're here. After all these years. Emily said, "Please, I need answers. I found your ring. The one David gave you. I married him. I didn't know. I didn't know anything." Sarah looked down at the floor, then at Emily again. "I didn't die," she said, "but a part of me did. That night, I found out what David had been doing with our mother. I lost control. I screamed. I broke things. I ran out of the house, and when I came back, they told me I was dead. They told the world I was gone. And I agreed to disappear because I didn't want to be part of that family anymore." Emily said, "And David? Did he know you were alive?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Yes, he knew. He visited me once. After you married him, he said nothing. He just smiled and left." Emily was shocked. "He knew? He lied to both of us?" Sarah said, "He always lies. He's not who you think he is." Emily felt like her world was crashing again. Sarah was alive. David had known all along. He had kept this secret and lied to both women. But Sarah wasn't finished. She said, "There's something else you don't know. Something you must know. About David. About why he really married you." Emily's voice was shaking. "What do you mean?" Sarah looked her in the eyes. "He didn't marry you for love. He married you for revenge." Emily stood in shock as her sister's words echoed in her mind. "He married you for revenge." Her breath became shallow. Her body felt cold. She looked at Sarah. "No, Anna." Her long-lost sister, now a stranger. "What do you mean?" Emily asked, barely able to speak. Sarah sighed, walked over to a chair, and sat down. "I didn't understand it at first either," she began. "But when David came to visit me after your wedding, he said something strange. He said, 'Now your parents will feel what I felt. Now they'll lose what they love most.'" Emily sat down too, her hands shaking. "But why? What did our parents ever do to him?" Sarah looked tired, like she had been carrying this weight for years. "You remember how Mom always used to say that she met David's mother at church?" Sarah asked. Emily nodded. "Yes. She said they were old friends." Sarah gave a bitter smile. "That wasn't true. Not at all. Our mother had an affair with David's father before she married Dad. David was the result of that affair. He's our half-brother." Emily's heart nearly stopped. "No, that can't be true." "It is," Sarah said firmly. "When David found out, he confronted Mom. She admitted everything. But instead of helping him, she told him to keep it secret. She said it would ruin the family. So he did. But not because he wanted to protect us. Because he wanted revenge. He felt abandoned by both his parents. He believed Mom chose us, you and me, over him, and he wanted to hurt her. Slowly, deeply, Emily tried to understand. So, he married me to punish Mom? Yes, Sarah said. When we were together, I thought he loved me. But then I saw the signs. He was close to Mom. Too close. Their secret talks, the way he looked at her. And then one night, I walked in on them in the study. Emily closed her eyes, not wanting to hear more, but unable to stop. Sarah continued, "That's the night I left. I was destroyed. I told Mom I would tell Dad everything. She begged me not to. She said it would ruin our family. That's when the plan started. She told Dad I was unstable, said I needed to disappear. She convinced him it was for the best. They faked my death, changed my name, and sent me away. And David, he just moved on. Waited. Got closer to you. And married you. To hurt Mom. Not because he loved you." Emily was frozen in her chair. Her entire life was built on lies. Her marriage, her family, her childhood, all of it. Sarah leaned forward. "I watched from afar. I saw your wedding in the newspaper. I cried for days. I wanted to come back, to scream, but I couldn't. I was scared. Scared that no one would believe me. Scared that you would hate me. But now you're here, and the truth is out." Emily whispered, "I don't hate you. I don't know what to do." Sarah stood up. "You need to decide who you are, Emily. You can go back and pretend nothing happened. Or you can face him. Make him answer for what he's done. But be careful. David is smart. He knows how to twist the truth. He'll try to make you doubt yourself." Emily felt a storm of feelings inside her. Sadness, anger, betrayal. She looked at her sister. "I want to face him. I want to hear him say it. I want to see if he'll admit it." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then you need a plan. You can't just walk in and ask him. He'll lie. You need to catch him. You need proof." Emily's voice was stronger now. "Will you help me?" Sarah smiled. A sad, proud smile. "Yes, I will. We'll do it together." That night, the two sisters sat down to make a plan. A plan to uncover the truth. A plan to confront the man who had fooled them both. But neither of them knew that David already suspected something. And he was preparing for them too. The next morning, Emily returned home, pretending everything was normal. She had to be careful now. She couldn't let David know that she had met Sarah, or that she knew the truth. Every word, every action from now on had to be planned. She had to wear a mask, just like he had been doing for years. David was in the kitchen making coffee when she walked in. He smiled like always and asked if she wanted some. Emily said yes and sat down at the table. She watched him carefully. He looked relaxed, as if nothing had changed. But now she could see things she hadn't noticed before. The way he avoided eye contact, how he always controlled the conversation, how he answered questions with more questions. She used to think it was just his personality. Now she wondered how much of it was fake. She began asking him small questions. Not too direct, but slowly testing him. "Did you ever visit the East Coast when you were younger?" she asked casually. David looked at her, a little surprised. "Not really," he said. "Why do you ask?" Emily smiled and shrugged. "Just curious. I read something about a town over there. It made me think of old childhood vacations." She watched his eyes. For a brief second, they shifted. That was a lie. He had been there. He was hiding something. She said nothing and changed the subject. That night, she met Sarah in secret again. They sat in Sarah's small apartment, going through old photos, letters, and papers that Sarah had kept hidden all these years. Among them, they found something important, an old envelope. Inside was a picture. It was of David and their mother, holding hands, standing very close. On the back, someone had written a date. That date was just 1 month before Sarah's wedding. Emily felt sick looking at it. That was proof, not just of the affair, but of the timing. He was still involved with their mother when he married Sarah. That meant everything Sarah said was true. Next, they started collecting things from David's office. Emily made copies of his old calendar entries, emails, and documents. She sent them all to a friend who was good with computers. He promised to go through them and see if anything important came up. A week passed. Emily kept playing the part of a loving wife at home. She smiled at David, cooked dinner, asked about his day. Inside, she was boiling, but she had to wait for the right moment. She had to be smart, not emotional. Then something strange happened. One evening, David came home early. He seemed nervous. He asked her where she had been that afternoon. Emily said she had gone shopping. David didn't believe her. "I went to your favorite store. They said you weren't there," he said. Emily's heart skipped a beat, but she stayed calm. "I stopped by a new store near Sarah's side of town," she replied. "You know, the part that's being redeveloped?" David paused, nodded slowly, and smiled. "Ah, makes sense. I just didn't want you to get lost in that area. It's not the safest." Emily smiled back, but inside, she knew something had changed. He was suspicious now. He was watching her. He knew she was hiding something too. That night, Emily got a message from her computer friend. He had found something. It was an email from David to an unknown email address. Short, but disturbing. It said, "She knows. We need to act soon." Before she talks to someone, Emily stared at the screen. Who was he writing to? Was it her mother? Someone else? She showed the email to Sarah. They both realized the same thing. David wasn't just going to sit quietly. He was planning something, and now it was a race. They had to confront him, but they also had to protect themselves. Because the man they were up against wasn't just a liar. He was dangerous. Emily and Sarah sat together late into the night, planning their next move. They now knew that David had been lying to both of them for years. They had proof of his secret past. They had the photo, the email, and the story that tied everything together. But they also knew something even more dangerous now. David was planning to do something before they could expose him. That meant time was running out. Sarah wanted to go to the police, but Emily wasn't sure. She knew that going to the police with a story about a secret marriage, a faked death, and an old family affair might not be taken seriously. They needed more solid proof, something the police couldn't ignore. Emily remembered something from the past. A storage room at her parents' old house, now abandoned. No one had entered that room for years, not since her parents moved out. If their parents had helped fake Sarah's death, maybe there was something left behind. Some records, or maybe even letters or a diary. Emily and Sarah decided to go there the next morning. The next day, they drove out early. The old house was still standing, but it looked tired and empty. The front lawn was overgrown. The windows were dusty. Emily unlocked the door with the old key she still kept in her drawer. As they stepped inside, everything felt frozen in time. The smell of old wood and dust filled the air. Pictures on the wall were still hanging. Furniture was still in place, covered with white cloth. They went straight to the basement, where the storage room was. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, the room was dark and full of old boxes. Emily picked up a flashlight, and the two sisters began looking through everything. They found old documents, school books, and boxes full of photo albums. At first, it seemed like nothing useful. But then, Sarah opened a box labeled, "Private, do not open." Inside, there were two notebooks. One of them had a red ribbon around it. It was their mother's handwriting. Emily opened it and started reading. It was a journal. Their mother had written down her thoughts, secrets, and guilt over the years. The pages were filled with stories about her affair with David. She had written about how she fell in love with him, how he was going to leave Sarah and marry her instead. But then something unexpected happened. Sarah got pregnant. Their mother wrote that David panicked. He didn't want to be a father. He didn't want the affair to come out. That's when the plan was made. Their mother and father helped David fake Sarah's death. They convinced everyone that Sarah died in an accident, and they secretly moved her away, telling her to never contact anyone again. Their parents sent her to another state, gave her money, and told her that David would never come for her. Sarah was shaking while reading the journal. Emily put her hand on her shoulder. They both knew what this meant. Their mother had betrayed her daughter to protect a man. David had destroyed both their lives, and their parents had helped him do it. But that wasn't all. The last few pages of the journal were even more disturbing. Their mother wrote that David was not just cold and selfish, he was dangerous. She had started to fear him. She wrote about how he would sometimes get angry for no reason, how he once pushed her during an argument, and how she began to wonder if she had made a mistake trusting him. In the final entry, their mother wrote that she wanted to tell Emily everything, but she was afraid that David would find out, afraid of what he might do. That entry was dated just 2 weeks before their mother's sudden death. Emily had always been told it was a heart attack, but now she wasn't sure. Emily and Sarah sat in silence. The journal had answered many questions, but it had also raised new fears. If David had done something to their mother, what was he capable of doing next? They decided to take the journal with them and scan the pages. This was proof, not just of his affair, but of a planned cover-up and maybe even a murder. That night, Emily returned home. She tried to stay calm, but she knew David was watching her. He asked if she was okay. She said she was just tired. Later that night, while David was asleep, Emily heard a soft sound outside. She looked through the window. A car was parked across the street. Someone was sitting inside. She didn't recognize the car. It wasn't a neighbor. It stayed there for almost an hour, then drove off slowly. The next morning, Sarah called Emily in a panic. Someone had broken into her apartment. Nothing was taken, but her documents, the photo, and even the copy of the journal, all gone. Only one person knew they had those things. David. Emily stood in her living room, holding the phone tightly. Sarah's voice had sounded shaken. The break-in was not random. Nothing was stolen except for the things that could expose David. The photo, the journal copy, the printed email, all gone. Emily knew what this meant. David had found out. And now he was cleaning up every piece of evidence that could destroy him. Emily told Sarah to stay with a friend for a few days. Somewhere safe. Sarah agreed. She didn't want to go to the police yet. They needed to be smart. If David was watching them, they had to stay ahead of him. Emily still had the original journal. She had hidden it in a locked drawer at her office where David couldn't reach. But she also realized something. David had not just broken into Sarah's apartment. Someone had been sitting in a car outside Emily's house the night before. That person might come back. Maybe it was David himself or someone he had hired. Either way, Emily didn't feel safe anymore. She started to carry the journal pages in her bag wherever she went. She even made digital copies and saved them in a cloud folder under a secret name. She wasn't going to let David erase the truth again. Over the next few days, Emily acted normal. She didn't confront David. She smiled when he spoke. She made dinner like always. But inside, she was planning. She started visiting her father more often. After reading the journal, Emily had questions. She didn't trust him anymore, but she thought he might crack under pressure. On her third visit, she brought a photo of Sarah. recent and clear. Her father hadn't seen Sarah in many years. Emily placed the photo on the table and asked him, "Do you know who this is?" He looked at it, eyes wide. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "No, that's not possible." Emily waited. He looked away and took a deep breath. Then he finally spoke. "I thought she was gone forever," he said. "We did what we had to do." Emily didn't interrupt. She just listened. Her father explained that back then, when Sarah got pregnant, their mother had panicked. She felt ashamed and scared that the affair would destroy the family name. David had begged them to help. He promised he would marry Emily and give her a good life if they helped him disappear from Sarah's world. Their mother agreed. She believed David loved her and that Sarah would be fine with some money and a new life far away. Their father had not agreed at first, but in the end he gave in. "We buried an empty casket," he said. "We held a fake funeral. Only your mother and I knew the truth." Emily asked why they didn't tell her the truth later. Her father said, "Because we didn't want to lose you too. If you knew everything, you'd hate us." Emily told him about the journal. Her father didn't seem surprised. He said, "Your mother was going to tell you the truth, but David, he found out she was writing everything down. I warned her to stop. She didn't listen." Emily asked the question she had feared the most. Did David kill her? Her father looked away. "I don't know. But she died the day after she said she was going to show you the journal." That was enough for Emily. David had to be stopped. Later that week, Emily got an unexpected call. It was from Rachel, the private investigator she had hired in the beginning. Rachel had gone quiet after giving her the first big discovery. But now she had something new. Rachel said, "I've been digging into David's background. I found something strange. He was married before Sarah too. A very short marriage, less than a year. And the woman, she disappeared. No death certificate. No contact since. Her family thinks she ran away. But I think something else happened." Emily asked Rachel to meet her right away. They met at a cafe far from the city. Rachel handed Emily a file with photos, documents, and letters. The woman's name was Lisa Harper. She had married David 10 years before he met Sarah. But after 6 months, she went missing. Police didn't investigate much. David had said she left him suddenly and moved abroad. Rachel said, "I think David has done this before. He gets close to women, uses them, and then makes them disappear. You and Sarah are lucky to be alive." Emily realized now that she wasn't just dealing with a liar or a cheat. David was possibly a serial manipulator. Maybe worse. Now it wasn't just about saving themselves. It was about stopping him for good, before he could do it again. Emily felt a deep chill after hearing about Lisa Harper. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It wasn't only about lies or a broken marriage. This was now something much darker. She and Sarah had been close to danger for years without knowing it. And Lisa's disappearance made it very clear. David had a long history of hiding things and maybe hurting people to protect his secrets. Emily sat in her room that night, thinking over everything she had learned. Her mother's sudden death, the faked funeral of Sarah, the journal, the break-in, and now this. Another missing wife. Everything pointed to one thing. David was dangerous. He always seemed calm, gentle, loving. But behind that face, he was someone else. The next morning, Emily called Sarah. She told her everything Rachel had found. Sarah went quiet on the phone. Then she whispered, "We have to go to the police now." Emily agreed. But she knew it would not be easy. They needed real proof. The journal was good, but they needed more. Something strong enough that the police would believe them. Something clear. Emily remembered something her mother had once told her. She said, "If anything happens to me, look in the blue box under the floorboard." At the time, Emily had thought it was just a random thing, maybe something about family photos or old letters, but now it sounded like a clue. That same day, Emily went to her childhood home. It was now empty. No one had lived there since her mother's death. She used her spare key, walked in, and went straight to her mother's old bedroom. She knelt near the wooden floor and tapped each board until she found a hollow sound. Then, using a screwdriver, she carefully lifted the board. Under it was a small, dusty blue metal box. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were several things: an old phone, a USB drive, and a sealed envelope. The envelope had her name on it. Emily opened the envelope first. It was a letter from her mother. Her mother had written everything she knew. About David. About Sarah. About the fake funeral. About the night she had caught David reading her journal. And the most important part, about how she had started recording their conversations, knowing something was wrong. Emily opened the USB drive on her laptop. There were 3 audio files. She listened. In one of them, her mother and David were talking in the kitchen. Her mother said, "You need to tell the truth, David. I'm not going to hide this anymore." And David replied, "If you say one more word, I swear you'll regret it." The second recording was even more serious. It was from the night before her mother died. Her mother said, "I gave Emily the journal. She'll know everything soon." And David said, "Then maybe I need to stop her too." Emily's heart beat fast. This was it. This was the proof. It wasn't just about a missing wife now. It was about threats. Real threats. From David himself. She copied the files and sent them to Rachel. Rachel said this was exactly what they needed. She would go to the police with Emily and Sarah. But they had to be careful. David had eyes everywhere. That night, as Emily packed her bag, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. It said, "You should stop digging, Emily. You won't like what you find next." Emily stared at the message. She knew it was David. He was watching, maybe even close. But now she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The next morning, Emily, Sarah, and Rachel went to the police station. They met with an officer who handled cold cases. At first, the officer seemed unsure. But once he listened to the recordings and saw the journal, everything changed. He said, "This isn't just about a family matter anymore. This is serious. If what you're saying is true, David might be involved in more than one disappearance." The police opened an investigation. They started to review David's past, his marriages, his travel records, and his finances. They also reopened the file on Lisa Harper. David didn't know yet. He was still pretending everything was normal. But soon, everything around him would begin to fall apart. Emily and Sarah had stayed quiet for long enough. Now it was time to reveal everything he had hidden for years. The investigation began quietly but quickly gained momentum. As the police dug into David's past, they uncovered many things that he had kept hidden for years. They found that Lisa Harper's disappearance wasn't the only case that had raised questions. There were other women who had mysteriously left their relationships with David, and each one had a similar pattern. They disappeared, and David always had an explanation. At first, the police didn't connect the dots, but now, with Emily's evidence and Sarah's testimony, they began to see the bigger picture. David was no longer just the charming, successful businessman everyone knew. He was a man with a dark secret, one that he had been covering up for years. The police questioned him about Lisa, but he stuck to his story, claiming she had left him and gone abroad. But they didn't believe him anymore. With the new evidence, they had enough to charge him with multiple offenses, including the disappearance of Lisa Harper, and now the murder of Emily's mother. As the case developed, David began to crack. The pressure was too much. He started to make mistakes. His calm and controlled demeanor began to slip. Emily could see it in his eyes when she met him face to face for the first time after everything had come out. It was in his nervous glances, his shaky hands, and his avoidance of eye contact. He knew he was losing control. The final moment came when the police discovered the truth about what happened to Lisa Harper. They found out that David had been with Lisa the night she disappeared, the night she died. His story had always been that she left him, but the truth was far darker. David had been involved in her death, just like he had been with Sarah's mother. He had tried to bury her, just like he had tried to bury the truth for so long. David's confession came at the very end, after hours of questioning. He broke down and admitted to everything. He confessed that he had been in love with both Sarah's mother and Lisa, and when things became too complicated, he made them disappear. His need to keep his perfect life, his wealth, his image, his marriage, led him to do the unthinkable. He had thought he could get away with it forever, but he was wrong. Emily and Sarah had uncovered the truth. The trial was long and painful for everyone involved, but in the end, justice was served. David was sentenced to life in prison, and his empire crumbled. He lost everything. But that wasn't the end of the story. For Emily and Sarah, it was just the beginning of their healing. After the trial, Emily felt a mix of emotions. There was relief, of course. Relief that David would never hurt anyone again. Relief that the truth was finally out. But there was also sadness. Sadness for everything she had lost. Her mother, her innocence, and the life she thought she had with David. She would never get those things back. But she had something now that was more important. Peace. The truth was finally in the open, and David's lies had no power over her anymore. Sarah, too, began to rebuild her life. She had a long road ahead, but she knew that with Emily by her side, she could face whatever came next. She was no longer alone. Together they would heal, and together they would move on. In the end, Emily realized something important. The journey she had gone on wasn't just about discovering the dark truth of her past. It was also about finding her own strength. The strength to face the truth, no matter how painful. The strength to stand up for herself and for the people she loved. And the strength to move forward, even when it seemed impossible. As for David, his story was over. The man who had manipulated so many people, who had hidden his dark secrets behind a mask of charm, was no longer a threat. He had been exposed, and now the world knew who he really was. He was just another man in prison, forgotten by everyone except those who had suffered because of his lies. But Emily would never forget. She would never forget the lessons she had learned along the way, the strength she had found in herself, and the love that had helped her and Sarah survive. They had both suffered in silence for so long, but now they were free. Free from the lies, free from the pain, and free to live their lives the way they always should have. And as Emily looked out the window, she knew that her journey wasn't over. There was still a lot to heal from, but with Sarah by her side, she was ready for whatever came next, because now she understood one thing more than ever. The truth always comes out, and when it does, it brings freedom. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.